Hi, I'm Jodi Daniels, CEO and privacy consultant at Red Clover Advisors, and we are all about helping overwhelmed small and medium businesses comply with global privacy laws and build customer trust. So let's dive in. Today might feel like you're drinking from the fire hose, and this is not my little girl, but would totally be my little girl running into the fire hose. So enjoy the experience. And if you have any questions, my contact information is at the end, and I'd be delighted to answer any of them. So to get started, I'm going to reference this amazing Billy Joel quote. It's a matter of trust. And that's really what we have going on here. When customers give us their data or engage with us or buy from us or sign up on our email list, they're trusting us. They think that's going to be good content. That's going to be a great product or service. I think I can trust who that company or that individual is. They also trust that we're going to do the right thing with their data, that we're going to explain to them what it is that we're going to be doing with their data, and that we're going to protect it from bad actors. Now, as marketers, I love this one. It's okay. We just want to serve you relevant content and advertising. And it's true. That's what we're trying to do. The more information we have, we can tailor what that content and that experience should be. However, at the same time, we need to be honest and we need to explain to the individuals what's happening with data. And that's where a lot of companies have not done that as well as they could have. And so, unfortunately, 2/3 of Americans don't trust companies. They feel like there should be more support for regulation over advertising, that there are not enough laws to protect us. They have very little confidence in social media. And so we're at this kind of interesting place in our society. And so some privacy laws came around to really help bring us up to speed, given the amount of digital data that is being processed today. So GDPR is the General Data Protection Regulation. It's the law in the EU that became effective May 25th, 2018. It affects any company around the globe of any size that is essentially processing data on an EU resident. And there's a variety of very specific criteria that you need to follow to be in compliance with GDPR. A lot of companies think it's only updating a privacy notice or maybe a cookie banner, and there are many, many, many other requirements beyond those. And then we have a new entrant, which is called CCPA. You might be wondering, what are those four letters? That is the California Consumer Privacy Act. It became effective January 1st, 2020, and enforceable July 1st, 2020. Now, the CCPA does have some minimum criteria, and you only have to meet one of three. It's $25 million of global revenue, process 50,000 data points. That could be 50,000 website visitors, 50,000 people that you've emailed, any combination of those. You could have 20,000 on your email list, 30,000 website visitors, or any kind of combination of personal data, or that you earn more than 50% of your revenue from selling data. So if you fall in any of those three, CCPA is in scope for you. Now, you might also be listening and say, well, I'm not in either of those three, so I don't have to worry about it. One, you might grow. Two, the end consumer doesn't know that there's these three criteria. And so what's going to happen is more and more companies are going to have CCPA as the floor. And they're going to kind of be used to what they're getting under that law and be a little surprised if a site over here doesn't have that, or a company over here doesn't offer the same elements that are required under CCPA. So I highly encourage all companies to really think about marching towards compliance, even if you heard me and say, oh, well, but that doesn't apply to me. So we're not going to go into too much detail on these particular laws, but what we're going to cover are kind of the elements of these laws, which are all about understanding the data that you have and some of the key requirements that you're going to need to do. So first off, why should you pay attention to these laws? Well, customers are going to choose companies who put privacy and security first. And like I said, if you might not have to comply with one of them, customers are getting used to expecting privacy notices to look and feel a certain way, cookie banners to look and feel a certain way, the ability to have individual rights. So if they're not going to be able to get that at your business, they might be a little surprised. Preventative measures are so much less expensive. So protecting your data from a data breach, which more than 2/3 of small businesses will have, is significantly better than having, preventing that is much more cost effective than having to deal with the data breach. And the same is true for regulatory fines or the negative PR or the social media backlash that you might get if you're flagged for doing something that was not in compliance with the law. And finally, our customers want this. Notice and customer choice is critical. This is what customers want. They want honest companies and they want to be in control of what's happening. So when we're talking about data, what are we even talking about? Well, I'm going to use the word personal data. It comes from GDPR, and personal information, which comes from CCPA, kind of interchangeably, but they're essentially the same. A few nuances, but for our purposes, the same. It's what you would imagine: name, contact information, date of birth, email, financial information, health information, also political, religious views, job information, professional information, gender information, criminal information, financial. All of that's going to be considered personal information, and all the online identifiers. So social media as well, all the chats. So think about the chatbots that you might be having, the conversations you might be having. What kind of personal information might you be getting from those or sharing to those different systems? But your IP addresses, cookies, geolocation information, and kind of any other digital data that you're collecting may be considered a personal data or personal information element that you have to manage, disclose, and would be in scope for these privacy laws. So to be compliant with these privacy laws, where's the first place you start? The first place is to know what data you have. You have to know what data you have. Do you have name and email? And do you have the whole credit card or just the last 4 digits? Do you have date of birth? What type of information do you have? And how do you use it? For GDPR, you have to go through the very specific use cases, legal basis to be able to use data for every single purpose of why you use it. And you have to have that documented. Where is it stored? Is it on your laptop? Is it with a third-party cloud provider? Is it, who's your email service provider? Do you have a CRM tool? Do you have Dropbox? Do you have virtual assistants? Do you have contractors? Where is the data located and stored? Literally by country, because that is important for GDPR, and to know what vendors it's with. And so who you share it with is also extremely important. There are contractual obligations under both of these laws. There are international transfer requirements under these laws. And you need to know all of this to be able to draft that privacy notice that's so important accurately. The privacy notice is a dynamic document and always needs to be updated and reflect what we're doing in our business. And to know what we're doing in our business, these are going to be the essential questions that we're always going to be asking so that we make sure that we have the transparency that our customers are asking for, and we're going to be complying with the requirements of the laws. Under the CCPA, there's a really unique definition about sale of data. And the last bullet here that you can read on the screen is really what selling is determined. And you'll notice it's not only for monetary consideration, it can be for other valuable consideration. So what on earth does that mean? Well, imagine you had an event and maybe you shared all the registrants of that event with a host or a sponsor of that event, that you didn't have me check the box that says it's okay to share it with them. That might be considered a sale of data. There's a variety of other examples, but events I think are a really good one to be able to see that that could be a sale of data. And you have to go through the analysis to determine if you are. And if you do, then you have to have a link on your page. This is do not sell my personal information, and be able to honor if Jodi comes along and says, I want you to opt out of the sale of my information, because that's an individual right under CCPA now. Now, if anyone here happens to be selling children's data, then you have to have special consent under CCPA. Children under 13, parent can do it. Children 13 to 16, the child can do it. Now, flipping back to GDPR, this is a really popular one in the marketing world, which is sending that email. Can you send that email, and what is the legal basis to be able to do so? Consent is one of the most popular ones, and understand consent has a number of requirements too. It cannot be a pre-ticked box. The privacy notice link needs to be on the screen. You need to be very specific what it is that you're opting in for, and in many cases, you might have to have multiple checkboxes to be able to manage the marketing of that appropriately. And in some cases, you can rely on a legal basis called legitimate interest. There's a 3-part analysis you have to do to be able to rely on legitimate interest, but it is a potential depending on the situation that you have. So first is to know, oh my gosh, I'm emailing internationally into the EU, I need a legal basis. And then you have to go through and determine which one it's going to be and document, tying in those data questions we had earlier with the legal basis. And then you would be in compliance with GDPR. Now, when we're thinking about our experience, it's very important to include user design. So as kind of an example, we have the do and the don't. If you're going to use location data, ask to use location data. Make sure the privacy notice is in a prominent place, not buried in 4-point font where I can't even see it. And also don't have it all over the screen in like 4,000 pop-up boxes. That's a terrible user experience. Depending on the kind of data that you're collecting, offer an explanation of why you're collecting that data. Create that establishment of trust. I want you to tell me your income bracket so that I can make sure that I deliver the right service to you. Otherwise, I'm just going to pick any bracket because I don't actually want to give you my real information, and now you actually have bad data. If there's any tracking technologies used, you're going to want to make sure that you have that properly disclosed in your cookie banner and your cookie notice, as well as your privacy notice, and make sure that you have the right vendor contracts in place. And always include security measures at the beginning. A lot of times we think, oh, I'm going to use that cloud vendor, that email service provider, or that third-party SaaS tool. They got all the security covered. And in some situations, they might have a lot of the security covered, but you're not 100% off the hook. You need to know who that vendor is, how they're securing that data, and make sure that you have all the security features tied on. And you might even be extracting data from that tool. And how are you going to be protecting when you download the Excel spreadsheet and send it off to someone to use? Think about how you're sending it and making sure that it is protected. I had mentioned around consent on the prior slide, which was making sure that it is not checked. A pre-ticked box is not consent. So the other thing to think about are all the tags that you have on a site. So for every tag and every pixel that you have, it slows the site down, and you have to make sure that it's properly disclosed in your cookie banner and that you've given me choices to do so or to opt out, and you've explained it. The other things around tags is that is a place where malware can come through easily and take your site down or put bad crawlers out there to steal your information. So it's imperative that you know what tags you have, and if you're not using one, then to take them down. So we talked about that privacy notice. It is a dynamic document. It should say what you do, and you should do what you say. If you have a new marketing idea or a new way that you want to collect information, use information, share information, you got to go back to the privacy notice. If it's not in there, you have to figure out what you need to do to potentially amend it, or you might not be able to do what you're looking for. Likewise, if you say you're going to not sell data or not share data, then that's the exercise you want to do. So your activities and the notice should be congruent. And it should always be something that you're looking at continuously. And quite honestly, the laws are always changing. And the CCPA, as an example, says you got to look at it at least one time a year and make sure it's accurate. But really, it's something that you want to look at on an ongoing basis. I've had multiple clients say, oh gosh, I really want to do XYZ, and their privacy notice was actually too restrictive and they couldn't. So the next time around, if we can make the privacy notice really a little bit more broad and make it work for them while still complying with the privacy laws, then they're in a good place to be able to be forward thinking and continue to build their business the way that they really want to. Now, in talking about kind of the user experience, while we need to have that privacy notice, we also don't want it to be like 4,000 pop-ups of our privacy notice changed and we have cookies and our terms and we share data over here, right? It's a terrible experience. And we don't want privacy to be this thing in the way. We want it to be a part of the experience. Remember, it's about building that customer trust, and privacy is the foundation to that trust. So we want it to be a solid experience. Really look at what your landing page is going to be and make sure that there is at least a privacy notice on every single landing page. Any page that has a pixel needs a privacy notice. Any page that you collect name and email needs a privacy notice. And the other thing I will offer is you don't want to have a page that says 100% secure. Nothing is 100% secure. And you need to be careful if it says, I don't sell. any information, because remember that very unique definition of CCPA. There might be a time where sell could be a part of it. And quite honestly, today, the advertising, all the technology, some are viewing that as a sale of data. That's like a whole other interesting conversation. We won't go too crazy into that, but I will only say I would remove the "we will not sell your information" if you have that. I see it a lot on lead magnet and landing pages. And there's many other phrases that can go in there that still accomplish addressing the concern the person has without putting you in a legal quagmire. So kind of in summary, I love Zig Ziglar. So if people like you, they'll listen to you. But if they trust you, then they're going to do business with you. And that's what we're really wanting people to do, is we want them to trust us and to do business with us. Because the more that we are transparent with our privacy notice, and we're transparent with the cookies that we use, and we do what it is that we say, and we provide them valuable content, and they're going to keep giving us their time. They're going to purchase our products and services from them. And ultimately, that's what we're looking for, is to build that amazing relationship. So if you have any questions, please feel free to send them along. Would love to be able to answer any of them. We went really quick, and there's so much to be able to cover when it comes to GDPR obligations. So kind of in summary, GDPR obligations, it's more than the privacy notice and the cookie banner. And the cookie banner is supposed to fire the cookies after I hit accept. We need to understand the data that we have. There are a variety of individual rights that we need to be thinking about. Like if Jodi says, I want you to delete my data, do you know where that data is to be able to say, yep, I got you. I know all the systems of where my data is. The same is true under CCPA, very similar obligations, and they need to be able to honor those. So there's a lot to be able to think about and understand that privacy should be one more piece when we think about, well, who's going to do the copy and how much is that going to cost and what tool and technology are we going to use? We want to also flag the, well, hold on, what about the privacy piece? Do I need to do anything for GDPR? Do I need to do anything for CCPA? Is it in the privacy notice? Is it a new tool? Hold on, is that tool GDPR and CCPA compliant? I need to know that too. Oh wait, do we have a contract with them? Who else is going to access the data? Do I export the data? All these questions should just become core like all the others that we're doing. And that begins to put privacy at the forefront and the individual's data top of mind. So I do have a little quiz if you want to kind of test your CCPA readiness. Here's all my contact information. Again, if you have any questions, I'd be delighted to be able to answer them. So feel free to just reach out in any capacity. You can find me on Facebook personally, or Red Clover Advisors, on LinkedIn personally, or Red Clover Advisors. The quiz is kind of fun and short and sweet, so feel free to grab the bit.ly or do the little QR code. And with that, I thank you so much for your time today, and I look forward to hearing from all of you.